Community banking was never meant to blend in. It was meant to build trust, build culture, and build something that lasts. I'm Susan Guess, and this is Built to Matter, a podcast about brand, leadership, and building institutions and lives that leave a legacy. A few years ago, we made a decision that probably sounded a little unusual for a bank. We converted one of our conference rooms into a social media room. Today, that might not sound so extraordinary, but when we first started talking about it, it wasn't something you saw very often in banking. And the idea actually started somewhere unexpected. My daughter was attending Duke University at the time, and like a lot of parents, I follow many of the university's social media pages. Universities and young people in general tend to be incredibly creative in how they communicate. So one day I saw something about Duke having a social media room, and it caught my attention. So before my next visit to go see my daughter, I started asking around to see if anyone knew someone in Duke's athletic department. Sure enough, someone did. And during that visit, I had the opportunity to tour their social media room. Now, I'll be honest, it wasn't what I expected. It was actually quite smaller than I imagined. But the reason was interesting. They have a lot of media spaces. The room I saw was mainly used for podcasts and interviews with athletes. They had separate photography studios and video spaces and a very large marketing team supporting all of it. It's a pretty sophisticated operation. But that visit was enough. It was enough for me to start imagining what something like that might look like for a community bank. Not on the same scale, but with the same purpose. A place dedicated to storytelling. And that's really where the idea of our social media room began. Once we made the decision, creating the room was actually simpler than people might think. Yes, it required an investment, and yes, it required giving something up. But in our case, it meant taking one of our conference rooms and turning it into something different. So there was a sacrifice there. It meant one less room for meetings, but once we committed to the idea, the process itself was fairly straightforward. We used our graphic artist, the same person who helped bring the WOW brand to life visually, to design the walls. We worked with the design group that helped us choose the right furniture for the space, and we installed ceiling tiles designed to improve the sound quality so the room would work well for video. And that was really it. Can someone do it more cheaply? Absolutely. But our philosophy has always been the same. If you're going to do something, do it right. Because if the lighting isn't right, the sound isn't right, or the background isn't right, people notice. And when you're telling stories that represent your institution, details matter. Once the room was complete, we started using it the right way. We began filming interviews with local business owners, community leaders, employees, and customers. We created video stories that help people get to know people behind the bank, and the response was immediate. Within the first year, our engagement grew dramatically. Video views increased by more than 800%. Social media engagement increased by more than 60%. And impressions across our platform climbed by more than 4.5 million. Those are numbers that many larger institutions would love to see. But the real success wasn't the numbers. The real success was the stories. Then something unexpected happened. The videographer we had been working with had accepted a full-time job somewhere else, and suddenly the room we had created for storytelling sat empty for almost a year. Now, we could have tried to produce videos ourselves, but we made a decision. We weren't willing to sacrifice quality, because if you don't have the right space, the lighting usually isn't right, the sound isn't right, the background isn't controlled, and in a bank, that matters. You risk showing something in the background that shouldn't be there. You risk including a customer who may not want to be on camera. You risk producing something that doesn't reflect the standards of your institution. Trying to do it ourselves without the right talent would have taken enormous time away from other priorities. So we waited. And that waiting period taught us something important. Many organizations say they want strong marketing. They say they want to tell better stories. They say they want to be different, but they're not willing to invest in what it takes to do those things well. Storytelling requires people, it requires talent, and it requires resources. And that leads to something I think that is important for young professionals in marketing. Really, all of us. You have to believe in your ideas, and sometimes you have to fight to be heard. Marketing isn't always the first priority for an organization. There are always other pressures: growth, operations, economic conditions, regulatory issues. There are a lot of things competing for attention. But if you believe something will make your institution stronger, you have to stay committed. You have to lift up your voice. You have to keep bringing the idea forward. And you have to be willing to show your value by being different. Because marketing isn't just about promoting what already exists. At its best, marketing helps organizations see new possibilities. And sometimes the hardest part isn't coming up with the idea. It's staying consistent enough and confident enough to see it through. Another thing that shaped our thinking about marketing is how dramatically the world has changed. When I joined the bank nearly 28 years ago, marketing looked very different. There were no websites, there was no social media, even email was still new. At the time, there were only a few ways to communicate with customers. Today, there are dozens: websites, social media platforms, video, search engines, digital advertising, public relations. Marketing today requires expertise across many areas: website specialists, SEO experts, videographers, graphic designers, social media strategists, public relations professionals. It's far more complex than when I started. And if an organization truly wants to communicate well in today's world, it has to recognize that marketing isn't just a role, it's a team. The good news is that season didn't last forever. Today, we do have a full-time videographer, and we're ramping up the room back up again, which feels important because sometimes momentum pauses. But when the vision is right and the need is still there, you return to it with even more clarity. And that's really what the social media room represents. It's not about cameras, it's not about furniture. It's about creating a place where stories can be told consistently. Because when you tell the stories of the people and communities you serve, something powerful happens. People begin to see your institution differently, not just as a business, but as a participant in the life of the community. And in many ways, the social media room reflects the same philosophy behind everything we've talked about in this podcast. It's not about trends, it's about connection. It's about creating a space where authentic stories can be shared. Because whether it's through a video, an ice cream truck, a teen ambassador program, or a simple conversation, the goal is always the same: to build relationships that last.